what really makes me optimistic on a deeper level is seeing the kindness and the compassion and these meaningful acts of beauty that people have been engaging in over the entire time of this crisis. I learned optimism from Marty Seligman. Optimism is, there's some work to it, but it pays off in spades.
Hi, it's Victor Perton here, and we're in the Optimism Cafe at the Centre for Optimism, and I am delighted. One of my great inspirations, Dr. Michelle Marks, who's inspired me with her writings, is now joining us live to talk about her optimism, to talk about her work, and to talk about ways in which you can improve your optimism. Michelle, welcome.
Thank you so much, Victor, for having me. And I am inspired by you as well and all of the work that you're doing on a global scale. So
a delight, a delight. Now, our first question in the Centre for Optimism, doesn't matter what event we hold. First question is always, what makes you optimistic? So Michelle Marks, what makes you optimistic?
Well, I mean, right now, the fact that a vaccine for coronavirus is about to be available certainly makes me optimistic. But what really makes me optimistic on a deeper level is seeing the kindness and the compassion and these meaningful acts of beauty that people have been engaging in over the entire time of this crisis. Little small anonymous acts or larger acts. Just a couple of days ago, we got a check in the mail from a friend of ours who said, this year for the holidays, don't send me gifts. I'm sending a check to all my friends for you to donate to someone who needs it. That kind of stuff makes me optimistic. PPE drives, kids giving out food to elderly people. Oh my gosh, that's what does it for me.
It's fantastic, isn't it? It's really, Nietzsche would have said, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And what we've also seen is it also makes us kinder.
It does make us kinder, but we have to make the choice to do it. So, so optimism is, there's some work to it, but it pays off in spades.
If you can start the morning with optimism, life is so much better. Now, you're a positive psychologist. Tell us about your work and what you're seeing in your community.
Well, my work right now is mostly just writing. I blog for a local newspaper. I'm opening up my practice for some more clients coming in January again. What I see in my community is a mix of optimism and fear and a full range of emotions. But in my actual community here, which is in upstate New York, we get these daily briefings from our town supervisor. And he puts it on Facebook Live every morning. And you could kind of see like the full gamut of optimism and pessimism and all of the emotions and how he presents every day. So right now we're having a spike in cases and he comes on, and it's hard to be upbeat when you're giving bad news, but yet, like the most optimistic and resilient among us, every day he finds a glimmer of something wonderful to share. A contest that the kids in the school had to make the best mask or whatever. The sheriffs got together and made Thanksgiving dinners for people who couldn't afford their own Thanksgiving dinner. So that's what I'm seeing in the community, is just even in the midst of fear and feeling down, optimists and resilient people can find those glimmers, and hanging on to that is so important right now.
And we have to praise people like that, because does it? McKinsey, Corn Ferry, Iger, who retired as the head of Disney, all believe that in this time, what the world is yearning for are realistic and infectiously optimistic leaders who can, it's not the rah-rah speech from the front, but as
Right.
you say, it's sharing stories of hope and optimism, or as my friend John Hagel would say, narratives of hope and
Yes,
optimism that are ongoing in our community. So those people should be praised, and I hope
absolutely.
everyone is praising them.
Yeah, I hope so too. I hope so too.
And I mean, you know, we've in Melbourne, we've gone through a huge lockdown. We're still getting used to people saying, come for lunch or come for coffee. Because I met a woman the other day who hadn't been to the hairdresser for 6 months. You know, it's just been like that
I
for
know
us.
it.
And so how have you kept yourself optimistic throughout this period? How do you generally keep yourself optimistic? What are your habits of an optimist?
Well, I wasn't born optimistic. I share that freely with everyone. I kind of came out of the womb and said, uh-oh, this isn't going to be good. But I learned optimism from Marty Seligman, not personally, but he's the founder, as many people know, of the modern positive psychology movement. And in the late 1990s, I was in my 20s. I was a newly minted psychologist, and I was going through a divorce, and it was a tough, tough time for me. And I saw him speak about learned optimism at the convention of the American Psychological Association. And it changed my life in a moment. Listening, when I realized that I had the agency, that I could actually transform my outlook and possibly transform my life just by working with the way I think, I took that on. I took on that challenge, and it absolutely changed me. But I think because I wasn't born an optimist, I have to work, just like I have to work at physical fitness. I have to work at maintaining my optimism. So I noticed that sometimes if I let it slide, I'll start to feel a little crankier over the course of time. But by working at it, by having a gratitude practice, a mindfulness practice, exploring my thoughts, savoring life's sweet moments, all of that, looking at when I'm interpreting things in a helpless manner rather than an agent of my own life manner, that helps me stay optimistic. Also, I'm inspired by my grandmother, who recently passed away at either 100 or 101. We're not really sure, but she throughout her life just became more and more and more optimistic. And at the very end of her life, she was in a nursing home because she fell and had a stroke, and it was the beginning of coronavirus, and she was alone, and she couldn't walk when she was a dancer her whole life. And I FaceTimed her, and she had just stood up by herself for the first time that day. And I said, "How you feeling, Grandma?" And she said, "I'm on top of the world." Now that is optimism. And I'm inspired by her memory to keep up my optimism practice
Uh,
so that maybe I can inspire others.
yeah, my mother died in October,
Oh,
and
sorry.
I've been a politician, I've been a trade commissioner, I've worked for the G20, but she said to me this year, this is the most important work I've ever done. So at her funeral, I committed myself to continuing to work, to spread optimism and to help people find their optimism for the rest of my
Yeah.
life. And there's actually some really good studies on the ultra-aged active. Yep. And so your grandmother, you know, over 100, still leading optimistically. The two traits
Yeah.
are optimism and purpose.
Yes.
Optimism and purpose. So I think you, Michelle, you will live beyond 100, no doubt at all.
Oh.
Now, your
Thank.
techniques are wonderful, you know, arguing with yourself against negative thoughts, a gratitude practice. So which of these techniques can people pick up now as they're heading towards Christmas and New Year? What would you, for the person who wants to build up their optimism, what are the 2 or 3 things that they could change between now and New Year to get them set up for 2021 and beyond?
Well, first of all, I think we can learn from the optimistic and resilient people who take a crisis and look at it as an opportunity or a challenge. This, I mean, we've got the fodder for that right now. So in this particular time, this holiday season obviously is going to be different than any other holiday season. You could look at it and say, this is awful. I can't be with my people, this and that. Or you can look for the silver linings and the opportunities in it. And in that way, you can actually fortify yourself so that you come out of this on the other end stronger and more resilient. So look for the moments of meaning. Say, okay, all of the superficial trappings this holiday season are gone. What's most important to me? You can connect with people, even as we on the other side of the world are connecting by Zoom. That's an amazing thing. We could savor the little teeny tiny pleasures of life rather than looking for big parties and festivities. So I would encourage people to do that, to look for the silver linings, to savor, but also there are people who have really suffered in this crisis, who are alone and who have had loss, and they might not be able to find optimism or upbeat right now. And we positive people don't want to be the happy police. We don't want to force anything on people that isn't natural. We need compassion for people who are suffering and struggling right now, and we need to meet them where they are. So for someone like that, maybe singing and dancing isn't going to happen, but connection or finding a glimmer of hope for them, maybe that's where the building blocks of optimism start for them. So that's what I would say for that. And I think that going into the new year that way, and take a New Year's resolution, commit yourself to a gratitude practice. It works. It's easy. It's wonderful. It works. And maybe curate your social media. There are ways that social media can really drag you down, but there are ways that, like the work that you're doing. And if you look and you're careful, social media can actually be very uplifting. So
Yes, I edit my news so that most of my news clippings have the word optimism, optimistic, or optimistically. The point you make about helping to lift those people, one of the things we advocate, one of our habits of the optimist, is to say to people, change your greeting. So in Australia and France, for instance, if you say, how are you? People respond, not bad, or in Australia, not too bad.
oh,
Wasted question, wasted answer. And so we've done it in prisons and we've done it elsewhere, and people quite enjoy it. We say, instead of saying, how are you? We say, g'day, what's the best thing happening for you? Or what's been the best thing in your day? Or what's been the best thing in your week? And as you say, if they're having a bad time of it and they say nothing, you know there's a question, an empathetic question to ask. But
right.
for most people, you actually stop them because they haven't been greeted that way, and they have to sort of think, exactly as you say, to find a silver lining in their day or their week, something
Yes.
good that's happened. So that's just absolutely marvelous advice, Michelle.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, that reminds me of when I used to work in the hospitality industry. I was trained, if someone asks you to do something, don't say no problem. It implies
Yeah,
there's a problem. Say my pleasure.
yeah.
And then you realize it is your pleasure and it's a pleasure for them. And little tiny tweaks in the way we communicate can go a long way.
I did an event for a cybersecurity company the other day, and they had, after the event, the next day they'd gone to Sydney to do some business. And they were at a table, and a couple of them who'd been in the workshop sent me messages to say that the boss had so praised the staff in the restaurant that he had actually uplifted the spirit of the restaurant where they'd gone just by changing
Yeah.
some greetings and words of gratitude rather than just, accepting, what's put in front of you and not making eye contact with the waitress or the waiter.
Yeah. I know gratitude, because it's out there so much and everyone talks about it. It can come off like it's fluff or just pop psychology, but it truly is so uplifting for both the giver and the receiver. It's a wonderful practice that can change the entire spirit and energy of a room, like you said.
Yeah, I had a friend who shared a photo of her jar of gratitude. So she puts the grateful things in a jar, and then when she's having a miserable time, she sits down, takes the jar, and plucks it out. And of course,
That's wonderful.
the more conventional is the Seligman practice, where you write down at the end of the day. But the trick that most people haven't learned is it's the first thing to read in the morning. You don't wake up to the radio news, whether you're sitting on the toilet or you're having a cup of coffee. The first thing to read is your gratitude for yesterday. But I think the thing that most people miss out on is no point just writing it in a journal. You've got to actually thank someone for what they did. Send them a message or send them an email, or for those who have tidier handwriting than me, a handwritten note. If I send it,
Yes.
it's indecipherable, but
That's a wonderful, I'm going to add that to my gratitude practice. I don't recheck in with it in the morning, but I'm gonna up it now.
yeah,
I
the
see.
Seligman evidence is that that's the thing that makes the difference. Because in countries like Australia and America, you've now got nearly 20-25% of the population on antidepressant or anti-anxiety drugs that actually don't work. For mild anxiety or depression, the drugs don't work. So you need a
Right.
practice like a gratitude
Yeah.
practice to make the difference.
Yes, absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
Michelle Marks, it has been wonderful. Will we be able to check in with you in the new year again to get your advice as 2021 proceeds?
Delighted.
Fantastic. Well, look, May,
Thank
on
you
behalf
so
of the
much
Centre
for
for Optimism, Michelle, can I wish you a Merry Christmas, a very Happy New Year, and it's been an enormous pleasure to have you here in the Optimism Cafe at the Centre for Optimism.
likewise. Thank you so much for having me. You have a wonderful holiday season as well.
Thanks, Michelle.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode of the Optimism Cafe as much as we did. We'd love to have you involved with the Centre for Optimism. Go to our website and you can sign up for a free subscription or join up as a member and share your optimism and become an even more infectious leader as the months and years go on. Have a great day.